Welcome to the video of Vort. The Torah tells us of the mitzvah of tzedakah in an agrarian society, the mitzvah of shechicha, giving grain of the field by the farmer to the poor. And the mitzvah of shechicha is when the farmer forgets some of the grain that he was harvesting in the field. He's not allowed to go back and collect it. It now belongs to the poor. There are a few interesting halachas related to the mitzvah of shechicha, which give us an understanding of the ethos, of the value of the mitzvah of tzedakah, generally speaking. Number one, mitzvah of shechicha is shechicha, it's forgotten grain. Number two is that it's limited to one grain or one sheaf, but if it's a large amount, I do, as the farmer, have a right to go back and collect my produce. And number three, it's la'acharav v'lo lefanav, the grain which is behind me and not the grain which is in front of me. So of course it's the grain which is behind me and not the grain which is in front of me. I'm not going to forget the grain which is in front of me. But I think all of these halachas of shechicha have a common denominator, and they are the common value of shechicha is insignificance. A grain which I've forgotten, it's insignificant, otherwise I most likely would not have forgotten it. It's one sheaf, one grain, it's insignificant. It's la'acharav, behind my back, not in front of me. Things which are in front of me, I pay attention to, I focus on. It's behind me. It's insignificant. It's not on my mind. And that is the challenge of shechicha, to remind us that when it comes to tzedakah, there is no amount which is significant or insignificant. And I should not base my giving on what I think is significant. I mean, what's $1 going to change somebody else's life at the end of the day? And the answer is, my dollar changing my life is the equivalent of $1 changing my life might be the equivalent of $1 million changing somebody else's life. I cannot make my decisions of tzedakah based on what I think is significant or insignificant, because even one sheaf can be significant for a particular person. And this gets us to the final point of the mitzvah of shechicha and its ethos. The Sifrei points out that the pasuk ends with a bracha, L'man yivarechecha Hashem, which does not exist by some of the other mitzvos of giving, of the farmers giving grain of his field, like leked and peah. So what is the point of L'man yivarechecha by shechicha? Says the Sifrei, how do I know that if I'm walking in the street and I drop a coin, and a poor person picks it up, and I didn't know that I dropped it, and I certainly didn't know that he picked it up, it still is a mitzvah of tzedakah that redounds to my merit, that redounds to my credit. That comes from this mitzvah of shechicha. Shechicha isn't just that I left it in the field and forgot about it and didn't come back to it, even if I never knew about it, and I never realized that I forgot it. And it's totally an unwitting act of tzedakah, no kavanah whatsoever. It's still a mitzvah. It's good. Says the Sifrei, if that is good, al achas kama v'kama, how much more so, how much better is the mitzvah of tzedakah when I do it with kavanah, when I do it with forethought. Over these next few weeks, leading up to Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, we will be inundated with tzedakah requests. The mitzvah of shechicha reminds us never to evaluate our giving on what we think is significant or insignificant. And we should always aim to give tzedakah with forethought. But even if we end up doing it unwittingly, that too is the mitzvah of tzedakah as well. Because there is no insignificance when it comes to the mitzvah of tzedakah. Have a good